MarzGurl.
I'm JoshKnightTheFirst.
And welcome to episode 80 of MokkoriPlay, the only podcast dedicated solely to all things City Hunter.
On today's podcast, we're going to cover Season 2, Episode 29 of City Hunter, titled Wounded Innocence, A Bullet and an Angel's Prayer.
Hey, it's a one-parter. It's just a standalone.
Okay, so we're going to tell you guys up front, kind of like we did at the end of last week's episode. There's the joke made out of grooming. It's a total of 3 times it shows up in the episode. Otherwise, I hate to say it, but this is actually one of my favorite episodes, aside from the really out-of-place joke.
I mean, I really just have to throw the whole episode out, because quite a bit of the episode is good, but man, it's one of maybe 2 times total in this whole series where Ryo kind of breaks his, I don't work for women who are under 18, and they're not women, they're girls. And so I just feel like, nope, those 2 episodes where he's suddenly kind of flirting with the idea of, maybe grooming kids into being interested in me when they turn 18 is not a bad idea. Maybe we just don't do that. Let's just not do that.
Like, if you were going to remake City Hunter, I just completely would throw that part of the plot out from this episode entirely.
And that's kind of what Takarazuka does, too. Takarazuka has a moment where a character comes up in their stage adaptation of City Hunter where Ryo's gotta ask about this particular kid. Like, how old is this girl? I think she's like 16. And Ryo immediately just goes, pass! Like, we do not lean into, but she's gonna be 18 later. We do not do that. I really do think that more modern adaptations are not going to try to go that route.
Thankfully, and somehow since City Hunter still keeps having newer adaptations, maybe we'll get to a point where we could potentially see this redone and have all of that uncomfortable stuff removed.
That would be great. I also want to say before we continue, because I have not really brought it up, it's been a thing going on for the last week or 2. If you're listening here in audio format, great, then you probably don't need this information, but I have been uploading our podcast over on YouTube because YouTube's really been pushing podcast formats in recent history. So I've been converting all of the podcast episodes into video format, although the video is absolutely nothing. It's just the logo of the show. It's just an excuse to get it onto YouTube because YouTube doesn't make it easy to just upload an MP3. And an old backlogged episode is opened up to public listening once every other day. So we're up to episode like 7 or 8 by the time this episode comes out. It's really slowly going through our whole backlog. And we found, like, when we were doing a live stream just the other day, somebody just found the podcast because we were re-uploading it to YouTube. And they said, I listened to the first few that had been uploaded on YouTube because that's just how I found out about it. And then I learned that you've got all of these episodes in audio format already, and so I've been marathoning through your podcast episodes, and I thought that was really nice of them.
Yeah, that's really cool to hear that people are enjoying the podcast and want to digest it that fast,
Right, exactly, which means that you are also City Hunter fans who probably already have consumed City Hunter, so you can go at this pace, but it's also cool if you, are doing this by watching an episode of City Hunter, and then you pair it with one of our podcast episodes. That would be the ideal way, I think, to do it. But if you've already watched City Hunter, I guess you don't really need to do that.
Yeah, so now you guys have options. If you only have YouTube available to you there wherever work or at home and you can't really get away from your desk, you have that option now of YouTube or any other place where you listen to podcasts.
Great, let's talk about the episode.
But yes, let's go ahead and start off this week. We're at the hospital because we're looking after a little girl here.
We've driven to the hospital in the Mini Cooper.
A new Mini Cooper, mind you.
It has to be a new Mini Cooper because that last one done got hit by a truck.
Well, multiple times.
And was abandoned there.
Times.
Yeah, it was hit multiple times and was abandoned on the way to Yokohama.
So we're to assume that one is just completely out of commission and this is brand new. But we see Kaori and Ryo getting out of the car here at the hospital saying, we're late for our appointment. We're meeting up with a new potential client here. Ryo immediately proceeds to hit on the next closest woman in the parking spot right next to them. And Kaori immediately, we aren't even a full minute into this episode, immediately hits him with a 500 billion ton hammer.
That's gotta be the record, right?
I believe that's the record right now. Unless we're getting into the metaphysical kind of hammers where it says shame. What is the weight of shame in tons.
Oh no, now you got me wondering.
Don't actually think of
the crushing weight of shame? I mean, haven't you ever felt the crushing weight of shame?
Yeah, but I've never tried to quantify it with numbers, though. And I mean, there's a difference, you know? There's a difference between the shame of like, oh man, I stole a candy bar, or the shame of like, oh no, I pushed somebody off a building. Like, there's a difference. Not to say that I've done that. I have never stolen a candy bar.
I'm going to see if anyone has done the math later.
You won't.
Yeah, I will.
Once they get upstairs inside the hospital, we are introduced to our patient/client for the week, a girl by the name of Mayako Tonegawa. And so we see that her mother has tried to commission City Hunter here, because what we're needing here is not a bodyguard position necessarily, at least that's not how it starts out. What we're looking for is a missing persons case.
Right, so the girl is supposed to be getting heart surgery.
Because she has some kind of condition, and apparently it's very easy to handle if she gets the surgery, but she says she hates hospitals and she hates surgeries.
So anyway, she's supposed to have this surgery, but she's refusing to have it unless she finds a particular person. We don't know who the person is yet. Some guy, he's out there somewhere. Find him, find the guy, or else I'm not gonna have the surgery. No, not gonna do it.
So like as you would figure, Cowdy and Ryo ask, okay, well, do you know anything about this person she's talking about? And the mom fills them in on this incident that happened 1 month ago when Maiko snuck out of the hospital.
She seems to do this a lot, I guess, and will continue to do this throughout the episode. But yeah, about a month ago, she went out into the streets. It was raining. It was a stupid day to do that. I don't know why she decided I'm gonna pick a rainy day to do this, but she did. So she's out there, she's getting wet, but then some guy comes along and he's in this trench coat and he's carrying an umbrella and he's like, hey, little lady, don't be out here getting wet. Take this umbrella and my coat and go on home. Bye.
And then this guy runs off, and then it's about that moment when Maiko's mom shows up and is like, oh my god, where have you been? What are you doing out here in the rain? That's stupid. You have heart problems. And so this guy ran off, and so this mysterious good Samaritan is the guy that Maiko wants to see before she can allow herself to have surgery.
Well, that's certainly inconvenient because the mom never saw the guy's face. The only person who saw the guy's face was Maiko. So, you know, that kind of sucks. This feels like it's going to be a wild goose chase. It's a fool's errand. Nobody's ever going to be able to pull this off, and therefore Maiko's never gonna have to get this surgery. I mean, that's her goal.
That's actually the whole reason she wants to do this, we find out later on. After hearing this story, Ryo remarks, oh, this guy sounds like one of those stereotypical good yakuza in a world of bad yakuza, like in the movies.
Yeah, but come on now, like, they romanticize it up, but it's not real.
It's nothing like that. A lot of the guys in it like to think that's what it is, that
they
it's a lot
really
more,
believe it.
that it's a lot more noble than they would have you see on the news and whatnot.
They genuinely believe it too, even though they are deliberately taking part in things that are contrary to what that notion is. I don't understand.
Some of those things being criming.
Doing a crime.
Now, as they're having this conversation here on the roof of the hospital, Ryo asks the question that he normally asks. All right, well, how old is your daughter?
Oh, well, she's 16, and Ryo is immediately like, pass.
I'm checked out. I don't do 16-year-olds. My policy is 18 and up.
We really should have just left it at that. That would have been fine.
See, in a different world, right? Cowdy would have said, oh, come on, this is a little girl with heart problems. Have a heart yourself. And Ryo would have just said, you know what? Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, he's been like that before. He's started by turning down children before, and then it turned out the child had some really sad sob story, and then Ryo couldn't overlook it, and then he took care of kids anyways, so...
Or in other cases, why not hit on the mom? You're having to work for the kid, but the mom is paying.
Yeah, there could have been a lot of other options here. Like, the other option, he's still a sleazebag, but I guess, you know, that leans into his character a bit, and is certainly less dubious than screwing around with a child. But no, what happens is Kaori's like, I gotta make sure Ryo takes this job by any means necessary. And this isn't even, I think the other time it happened, I think we've already covered the one other episode it happened in. So I'm hoping this is the last episode that this happens in.
Like, was that not the what's going... No, it wasn't the what's going on episode. We did already cover it.
Yes, we've already covered the other time
this happened. No, it was the what's going on episode.
No, he did not want to be involved with that girl. She kept forcing herself onto him.
If anything, there's only one other time this happens.
No, I'm pretty sure we've already covered it. I think this is it. Anyway, so Kaori makes this brilliant-ass decision of, well, I'm just going to suggest to Ryo, hey, have you heard of this really neat thing called grooming?
Grooming? What's that?
Well, it's when you take a 16-year-old girl who's underage and you realize, oh shit, well, she'll be an adult in 2 years. Why don't I just start raising her myself now to be the obedient 18-year-old woman I will want her to be in 2 years? Then we get this entire sequence inside of Ryo's head of him literally playing with barely over toddler-aged children and like giving them toys and ice cream and shit, and then they're slowly over the course of like 10 plus years
In the course of like 3 seconds in his imagination.
growing into women in bathing suits, and now suddenly he has a crop of women who are all over him. This is the grossest motherfucking thing possibly in the entire series.
This admittedly is some heinous shit. Like, we're not in support of that. That's gross. Never do that. Ever. It's wrong.
Please don't do that. And it makes me so mad that it came from Kaori.
Of all people.
Suggestion comes from Kaori, and it's the second time this happens.
When every episode, she's the voice of reason, usually.
Right. So this feels like, I don't know, man, Hojo. I think this was Hojo's original narrative. I don't know what made you go in this direction. Like, you ran out of ideas for, oh man, I want him to take care of a kid, but I need to come up with some new way for him to decide it's okay to take care of a kid. So I think I'm gonna go in the grooming direction. Nah, man, I'm not sure why you made that decision.
Like, we're 35 years after the fact here, and that shit ain't cool. That shit don't fly.
Man, it shouldn't have been cool at the time. I'm sure it wasn't cool at the time. Here we are anyway.
Well, it's the issue with a lot of 80s media is that you go back and watch any of it from that time period, and some of it's real hard to watch because you realize, oh my god, this is what people thought was funny?
Yeah.
Like, as has been brought up in different arguments on podcasts and YouTube videos, you try going back and watching Revenge of the Nerds and being okay with it.
Oh no.
Exactly. So the important part to focus on is that Ryo has decided to take the job. Let's just leave it at that for the moment. So we will now shift our focus out to the damn wharf, because it's always the wharf. It's always ever the wharf, and you know what it always also is? Yakuza. It's the Yakuza out at the wharf again.
They're in some warehouses. It's always some warehouses. There's a bunch of boxes in there. What do they even have in those boxes? I don't know. One of the boxes, for some reason, seems to have a knockoff version of the AARP logo. I don't know how else to read this logo, because it just looks like a kind of off-kilter AARP.
And so we're treated to our second focal character for the episode, who is the guy that actually was the Good Samaritan that helped out Maiko in the rain, and it's a character by the name of Tetsu. Now, when I first watched through this episode with you, years ago at this point, I immediately recognized Tetsu's voice actor, because this guy's got a very unique voice. And so this is actor Hochu Otsuka, who has been in a ton of anime since the 80s. People would remember him a lot as Jiraiya from Naruto. Tokusatsu fans would know him as Deneb from Kamen Rider Den-O. And more recently from Demon Slayer, he's Urokodaki, the guy who trained Tanjiro.
It's so weird that he's just some random schmo in this that you're never gonna see again. He's just some guy. But I guess, this has gotta be fairly early on in his career.
But he's been at it for a while.
Well, clearly, this was 1988, so yes, this has been a while.
But yeah, you go look up his work. I love everything he shows up in. I think he's also, if I'm not mistaken, he's the teacher, the headmaster in Spy Family. Eriganto! That guy.
We have been watching it in Japanese.
Yeah, we have been watching that one in Japanese.
We watch so many dubs that I'm like, oh, we're just watching dubs all the time. I'm not gonna go watch in Japanese. Wait, that's the one we're actually watching in Japanese.
Yeah, because I actually really like the Japanese cast on
actually,
that one.
Yes, it's cool. It's fine.
So yeah, Tetsu here is a messenger boy for this Yakuza family. We're not given a name. We just know that their boss's name in Japanese is Gonzo. But you might see this written out in the way it's spelled, Gonzo, and you might pronounce it Gonzo because you're so used to the Muppets, but no, it's Gonzo. And so Gonzo here is telling Tetsu, hey, you've been a messenger boy for us for too long. It's time for you to step up your game.
Here, have this gun. Get out there and be somebody.
And the way to be somebody is you need to go kill City Hunter.
This is the stupidest idea. Like, I don't know why they thought any of this was gonna work. I understand them going, oh, well, if he dies, dies, if Tetsu dies, then that's fine, because he's just some grunt or whatever. But why do they think that some guy who's just some grunt or whatever, who's never held a gun in his life, this is his first time holding this gun, and he's scared of it, and he's dropping it all over the place, they think he is going to go out there and successfully kill City Hunter? I'm not sure how they understand who City Hunter is, and yet seem to know nothing about who City Hunter is.
Like, they call him Saiba. If you take out Saiba, you'll be a head guy here in the underworld. So they know it's Ryo Saiba.
I don't understand. I don't understand why they've come to this decision. These are the stupidest yakuza.
This is like saying, okay, we're gonna take out City Hunter. Who are we gonna send? Wimp Lo.
I am bleeding, making me the victor.
That'll come into play later.
Wow.
Now, back at the hospital, we see once again that Maiko is trying to sneak out because, again, she doesn't want to be there. She doesn't want to have this surgery.
So then Ryo pops up from around the corner, is like, hey, what are you doing there?
He says it more grossly than that.
Oh,
He's
I
like,
know.
hey, my little 2-year investment plan, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's super gross. Thankfully, this doesn't come up that often, but it is very, very gross.
And thankfully also, she immediately takes the wind out of his sails and being like, oh, you're the old man I saw earlier that I accidentally threw a pot at. Which we kind of skipped over. When they first got into the room, Maiko was complaining to her mom she didn't want the surgery and was just throwing things out of the room. And one of the things was this little potted plant, which went flying out of the door just as Cowdy opened the door and got Ryo right in the face. The mom tries to apologize. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
Whoops.
But then Cowdy tells her, oh, don't worry, he's trained for this.
By trained for this, you mean like taking it in the face?
Well, yeah.
I mean, it's accurate.
He takes it in the face with a hammer every episode just about.
Yeah.
So yes, he does in fact have very specific training for that. But yeah, once it hits his ears that he's being referred to as an old man by the 16-year-old, he immediately bug eyes out.
Oh, the animation is so good. This episode's animation is strangely pretty good. Pretty fluid and a little cartoony in places.
But I like it.
I do like it, yeah. But no, we're here at this elevator where Maiko's trying to get out.
And Ryo has to be like, hey, I'm not an old man. I'm a young man. I'm in my prime. And I'm also very good at finding people, which is why your mom hired me.
Oh, that's what she wanted. Okay, let's go. And she calls the elevator, which, by the way, I do have to make mention that the elevator very clearly skips the 4th floor because, you know, Japanese superstition, we can't have a 4th floor in buildings
because 4 in Japanese is she.
Sounds like death.
And sounds like death.
Superstitious shit. Just like we get superstitious about
the 13th floor.
13th floor. We don't completely remove the 13th floor from our buildings, but you know, it's the same idea.
And so Maiko says, well, great, if you want, we can look for this guy together. I don't actually know his name because he was just a nice guy to me. But remember, I'm the only one who knows what he looks like, so you need me. And Ryo's like, oh, all right, fine. So they leave the hospital. And what's really interesting to me is this is one of the few times I've ever seen Ryo, I think, use his blinker to leave the hospital.
Oh yeah, but like we take like an extra few seconds to see him starting to pull out of the driveway of the hospital, stops for a second, uses his turn signal, and then pulls out onto the street. I don't know why we needed to like waste a little bit of extra time watching him do that, but we did it.
It just goes to show that sometimes Ryo can obey traffic laws. And so they're heading off for Shinjuku, where it's said that Maiko did run into this guy, Tetsu. We know it's Tetsu. Mm-hmm. But before getting there, they stop through Harajuku.
And it seems like Maiko has very specifically directed them to go to Harajuku. And Kaori's having to ask, well, hey, why are we going through Harajuku? This wasn't where you got stopped in the rain, right? And she's like, no, but he can't have stayed in Shinjuku very long, so why don't we try going through Harajuku? In fact, oh my god, stop right now!
Oh my god, did you find him? Is he here?
Ice cream!
It's literally just to stop and get some cherry ice cream.
I don't know if it's cherry, but the name of the ice cream parlor is Cherry Bomb.
Well, B-O-M-E.
But then in like 2 seconds later, they're writing it B-O-M-B on some other piece of signage. So they don't know what it is.
They don't even know. And what was weird is right when she gets her ice cream, what we call the Mokkori song starts playing, the bow,
It's not even sexy. She's not even trying to eat it sexy. That's just like how it happened. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just a weird place to do that. And so next up, we're going through this montage of her looking through all these shops and different places there in and around Harajuku, I think they're still at. And so far, Ryo and Kaori are just trailing behind. They're not seeing anything. She's not seeing anything. Maiko isn't. And then she stops in front of this hotel that we see is named Hotel Mokohama, not Yokohama.
I was confused for a second because I couldn't see the first letter of this name of this establishment for a moment. So I was like, Yokohama? I thought you were in Harajuku. Those are pretty far apart. Oh no, it's Mokohama.
It's a portmanteau of Mokkori and Yokohama.
I mean, you're
Mokohama.
You're headcanoning that, but I mean, I guess that's fair.
And we see outside that there seems to be a romantic scene playing out. There's a man hitting on a woman, and for whatever reason, he's draped his handkerchief over a glass of water and turned it into a bouquet of flowers. And for those of you who've been keeping up with the podcast, we know who this is.
This guy has shown up a couple of times, like we first saw him when the Yakuza tried to hire him in an attempt to woo a specific woman, and he was doing a very bad job of it because as smooth of a talker as he is, he's really more of a magician, as we just saw him magic out a bouquet of flowers just now.
Oh, it was the girl who had multiple jobs. Remember, she loved money.
You're right, exactly.
And so Kaori and Ryo show up. Maiko doesn't know who this is. She's just watching and be like, oh, how sweet. He's trying to put the moves on her. And then Ryo and Kaori see this guy and they're like, hey.
Magician! Do I have to tell this story now?
You might have to tell the story for context.
Okay, I'm gonna try and make this brief. This was many years ago, at least a decade ago, if not longer. Oh, it had to have been longer. More than a decade ago at MagFest. Okay, the music and gaming festival happens around the DC area every year. Anyway, it's the middle of the night. I'm just trying to go into the arcade they have set up, or no, actually, I'm like waiting for the elevator, which is why I'm standing where I am.
Uh-huh.
And just some guy I've never seen before. He comes up to me and I'm wondering if maybe he has recognized me, but he approaches me and he says, "Hey! Magician!" And I'm realizing this man is very drunk. He doesn't know what he's saying, but he thinks he recognizes me, and he's like accusing me of being a magician. And he starts babbling on about, "Aren't you the... Didn't you?"
And then you tried to correct him, didn't you?
Well, I was like, "Do you know me from somewhere?" And he's like, "No, that's not it. You think I'm weird, don't you?" And I'm like, I don't know you, sir." And finally, he just kind of muttered and stumbled away. This man was just so drunk. But I've carried with me, "Hey, magician!" everywhere I go ever since. So now this guy gets the "Hey, magician" treatment. So Kaori and Ryo are like, "Hey, magician!"
And this guy, I can't believe that they let him do this. This guy breaks the fourth wall, and he's like, oh shit, these are the guys who busted my chops in episode 43 and episode 65.
Literally specifying episode numbers.
And you know what? He's right. Those are the episode numbers. I'm glad you guys remembered Sunrise.
And then he ran away.
Yeah,
that's it. That's his whole cameo.
Like, there was no need for him to show up here.
It could have been literally any couple just having a romantic time, and Maiko was gonna point out, "Oh, I just saw this really romantic couple, and I thought, oh, I really want something like that to happen to me one day, too." It could have been anybody. It didn't need to be this guy. But Sunrise was like, "You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna add this guy."
We're gonna give it a little bit of fan service here. But yeah, Maiko comments, "Oh yeah, I'd like to do that." And Ryo's like, "Hey, just wait 2 years." And then Kaori has to pinch him real hard.
Which, I'm glad she did, but Kaori, this is your fault. What the fuck? Fuck you. I'm really mad at Kaori right now.
For this episode, I understand, yes. And so as Ryo's there nursing the big-ass pinch on his arm, we see two other characters slide out from the background, and it's Tetsu and his other Yakuza brother-in-arms. And so, brother-in-arms guy over here is like his hype man.
Alright, you're gonna get out there and you're gonna do it. You're just gonna put one between his eyes right now. And I'm like, oh my god, he's making him do this out in the middle of the street in broad
public?
Daylight? Yeah.
Right? And so Tetsu's there just trying to hype himself up, like, yeah, I'm gonna be a man. I'm gonna man up. I'm gonna level up. I'm gonna do it. All right, I'm going in there.
Hey, Ryo! like he's just shouting it out. The stupidest. He could have just walked up and like he's so stupid that maybe Ryo would have not expected it coming if he had just quietly walked up to the back of his head and then blam! Maybe that would have worked, but nah, this guy shouts and he drops the gun.
Hey, City Hunter! This one's for you! Pop! Right on the sidewalk. And Ryo's like, excuse me?
Even he's kind of like, why did this just happen?
Nandes what? And so this guy falls on the ground. Maiko goes running up to him and then immediately realizes, oh my god, you're the guy!
So when Maiko's like, oh my god, it's the guy, Ryo is like, he does exist. And I'm just thinking, the M&M's commercial,
Yeah.
They do exist.
Oh, Santa? Yeah, the one they play every Christmas. Saiba? Tetsu?
And then Kaori's like, hey, is he the guy? And then Maiko's like, no, he's not the guy. Hey, I gotta go, bye! And she grabs Tetsu, and they manage to run off and escape from Ryo and Kaori for at least a second, or at least she thinks.
Yeah, they're really, like, around the corner at the park.
And they're sitting together in the swings, and they're like, I didn't think I'd find you again.
Also, damn.
Now that I found you, I had this condition of, if I found him, then I would have this surgery, but I really don't want to have the surgery, and now I'm gonna have to. Damn. Tetsu's like, well, wait, what is this surgery? Are you okay? And she's trying to play it off like, oh, clearly, it's really not that bad. Like, I don't need the surgery, because look at me. Would I be out walking around town if I desperately needed this surgery? And he's like, yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, you look alright to me. I mean, you seem healthy. I mean, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you know, because disability can't be invisible.
Oh, man, tell us how you really feel. I mean, that's a conversation for a whole different podcast.
But it's true, though.
It is true, though. But unbeknownst to both Tetsu and Maiko, they have been followed. Ryo and Kaori were able to catch up, and they're just sitting in the Mini Cooper waiting while Ryo pours out...
No, it's Kaori.
Or Kaori, you're right.
Also, Maiko does know. Maiko knows that they're there. Maiko's like, we're having this conversation right now, but actually, I'm pretty sure they followed us here. Look over there. There's their Mini Cooper.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So yeah, she knows they're there, and Kaori's pouring out from this giant-ass thermos that just says sports on it. And you know that's Ryo's.
It could be. Or it could just be that she's like, I just need a thermos. What does this say? I can't read this. It doesn't matter.
And so they're sitting there watching him like, well, we'll see where this goes. And so Tetsu's friend is just out of sight watching all this happen to see whether or not Tetsu actually goes through with it. So once Maiko points out that Ryo and Kaori are over in the Mini Cooper, he makes up this excuse to go over there like, hey, I gotta pee real quick. I'll be right back.
You know, because the restrooms are kind of over in the same direction. And he's deciding, alright, I'm really supposed to do this hit. I don't want to. I'm real nervous about it, but they're just right there in the car, and I'm just gonna walk up to them, and I'm just gonna pull my gun, and, hey, what are you doing over here? And Ryo is just right behind him. Like, we really thought, oh, he's still in the Mini Cooper, and like 2 seconds later, he's not in the Mini Cooper, he's behind Tetsu.
Like, he's Batmaned his way behind Tetsu without anybody hearing him at all.
Right.
And so Tetsu's like, oh crap, City Hunter! And so this flicks a switch in Ryo's head like, oh, he called me City Hunter. You must be Underworld. He's taken Tetsu's gun and is pointing it straight at his head like, who are you? Cut the crap.
And before he gets a chance to get an answer out of him, Maiko's screaming from back at the swing set. We go and turn to look at the swing set, and her shoes have just fallen off. And the other Yakuza guy who was there like, damn it, he got made. So now I gotta do this. And he has kidnapped Maiko, stuffed her in some American car that says Michigan on the back, so it's some car that was built in Detroit.
You figure.
And stuffed her in this car and is driving away with her.
And she's there screaming out of the back window like, help me, Tetsu, no!
I'm a kid and I'm being kidnapped by the Yakuza member driving a foreign car.
And so Ryo kind of points the gun harder at Tetsu, if that's a thing you can do, and he's like, alright, where are they taking her?
Harumi Wharf, man! Don't you know all crime happens at Harumi Wharf? Jesus Christ! Put the gun away!
And so Kaori there, before he fully gives up the information, has to plead with him, no, you don't understand. She's actually really, really sick.
Oh shit, I was an asshole about invisible disability.
Alright, fine. She's specifically at Warehouse 7 at Harumi Wharf. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I believe you.
And now we gotta follow them to Harumi Wharf. Or at least just Kaori and Ryo. They get back in the Mini Cooper and they drive off. But Tetsu's feeling pretty bad, so he's like, I know I'm just wearing sandals right now, but I gotta run. He's just going on foot. He's just huffing it. He's not gonna take the train. He's not gonna get a taxi. He's just gonna run, which actually is working out in his favor pretty well right now.
Because right now, Kaori and Ryo are stuck in highway traffic, and we caught this. They didn't think we were gonna catch this, but we caught this. They're next to a big ol' semi-truck, and you can just make out the Sunrise logo on the side.
It's really small. It's really cut off. Most of the logo is cut off. But if you know what you're looking for, because we've seen them put the Sunrise logo on the side of a truck before, that's what it looks like. So you think we couldn't catch it? We caught it, even if only about an eighth of it is visible.
And so they're stuck in the car, and it's really funny watching the Mini Cooper scoot forward and seeing Ryo and Kaori there inside all smushed together.
And they're like leaning forward, all their muscles are all tensed up, like there's nothing I can do. I can't go any faster than this.
And then here comes Tetsu, Forrest Gumping his way past the car, like,
in his sandals, running faster than highway traffic, because the highway traffic is basically at a complete standstill. So he's gonna make it down there before anybody else.
And Ryo's like, oh shit. And so he gets out of the car and starts running.
You have to assume he has decided, Kaori can handle the car. Because I don't think Kaori goes along with.
You can't just abandon the car again for the second time in 2 weeks.
We just got this
car. So no, Kaori stayed in the car.
Because we don't see her again until like the very end, right?
Right.
Yeah, so she stayed with the car. She never made it down to Harumi Wharf.
Or no, she probably would have gone.
She never got out of traffic is what happened.
But it's already sunset, and we see that Maiko's kind of at gunpoint with these other Yakuza guys, Gonzo and his 3 other dudes. Tetsu busts in the door like, hey! You get your damn hands off her.
To do this Back to the Future, like, I didn't expect to be in this situation, but I'm here now.
And so, unfortunately for Tetsu, Gonzo completely ruins his ideals of what the Yakuza are and tell him, you realize we set you up to fail, basically. You're an errand boy, you're expendable, this is what Yakuza life really is.
Yeah, but aren't you guys also fucking idiots? Because if he fails, then your goal of killing Ryo just to get big props in the underworld also fails? Are you fucking stupid?
Also, think about that too. If Tetsu's alive here, and you realize you've had to kidnap the girl because he failed to kill City Hunter, that means City Hunter's on his way here!
These guys were very bad at this.
Most guys that try to take out Ryo on a weekly basis are very bad at this.
But it's like they just didn't think it out from A to B.
Not
even A to Z, like you
or
think.
A to D even.
Like, no, just not even, they didn't even make it to the letter B. They didn't make it that far in their thought process at all. Just think, like, if City Hunter is this good, what made you think sending Tetsu was going to work?
You say you're gonna send this rookie errand boy to kill City Hunter. That's a horrible idea. That's a terrible idea. And so Tetsu's there, like, having this existential crisis of, man, Yakuza life isn't as romantic as I thought it would be. And so this grunt pulls his gun on Tetsu and is like, oh, time to off you.
Oh man, who would have thought organized crime would be like this?
Like, Tetsu goes home and looks up at his poster of Kazuma Kiryu like, oh man, we really screwed up today, didn't we, Kiryu-san? And so this dude's gonna pull this gun on Tetsu, he shoots at him, and just at that moment, Maiko nudges him out of the way and deflects the bullet from hitting Tetsu.
And I don't know if she's being brave so much as she's just a 16-year-old impulsive girl who's really stupid. Like, she probably saved Tetsu's life, because he does get hit, but he's hit in the arm.
Well, not yet. He hasn't been hit yet.
Okay. But she probably does save him, because if this bullet had gone off as planned, probably would have killed him.
Well, yeah, but see, that's the unfortunate thing, is she blocked the first shot, and then Tetsu covers her up, the dude fires again, and then yes, he does get hit in the shoulder meat. So yeah, now Tetsu is bleeding. Good job, Maiko.
Still though, better hit in his shoulder than killed with that first bullet.
That is very true. But thankfully, Ryo has finally caught up. He hit play, so Footsteps is going. He disarms the first guy and he's like, hey, get the hell away from them kids. And so the other two guys pull their guns. Ryo disarms both of them.
Yeah, so much for that.
And then he gives this really clunky threat to Boss Gonzo here, which brings up another thing we kind of meant to talk about in this episode, is the translation's a little off.
This is a weird, not wholly incorrect translation, but I feel like it needed a second pass. I'm not really sure what's happened here because it feels different from a lot of the other episodes around it. Take, for example, just a second ago when Tetsu got shot in the shoulder, and Maiko says, Chiga, which is literally like, have blood. And so the subtitles just say, blood, whereas a lot of translators would probably make the decision to say, you're bleeding, which I do think sounds more natural than blood. It's not wrong, it's just weird, but that's a super minor thing, but I can't stress to you how much it feels like the whole episode is like that.
Yeah.
So we get to this line where I think the intended sentence should be something along the lines of, how do you think this is gonna end for guys like you who try to kill me? But the sentence that's written is more along the lines of, what do you think the last days look like for guys like you who try to kill me? It was really strange. I had to sit there and stare at it and go, what was the translator trying to say here?
Because clearly what it is Ryo's trying to threaten Gonzo and his goons into, like, giving up their life of crime, which he does manage to do, but it's the manner in which it's written out on the screen that's kind of like, huh? Like, yeah, it's not the easiest to get across that, oh, this is a threat to stop criming.
Yeah, he means, how do you think this is gonna end for you?
This is gonna end badly.
This is gonna end badly.
That's the connotation.
That's what they meant, but man, that sentence was really badly written. And a lot of sentences were like that this episode. It felt really dry in places where I knew, like, oh, this could be written more like a natural speaker, but it wasn't. Or there were times where I noticed that the characters were saying words, and those words, for whatever reason, didn't end up getting translated. There was a time where the mom answers a question that Ryo says, and she says, can you help me? And the is actually yes. Means yes, but they just didn't translate the yes. Also, they didn't put a subtitle there for the yes. They just put a subtitle for the rest of the sentence after the yes. Like, it was weird. I don't understand why they made some of the decisions that they made.
So yeah, that's kind of weird, but hopefully it's just this episode. And thankfully, Ryo has successfully chased off Gonzo and his goons down the street, so they're not getting arrested. Psycho doesn't show up to make an arrest. But right now, we gotta deal with Tetsu because he's losing blood.
I mean, yeah, but, like, it's really not all that bad. It's just a flesh wound. But Ryo comes in pretty hard with the, oh my god, he's bleeding so badly, if we don't get him to the hospital for surgery, he's going to die!
Oh no! Tetsu, you can't die on me! And Tetsu's over here like, no, hashtag Yakuza life.
This is how I'm gonna go out, like a badass. And she's like, you're so fucking stupid. I mean, she doesn't say that, but she is like, no, you've gotta live, what the hell? And he's like,
if you die here, it would be worth nothing.
He's like, yeah, but hospitals suck, and I hate surgeries. And she's like, wow, we're the same.
It's like that Spider-Verse, you're just like me.
Just like me. And she's like, okay, how about this? I'm supposed to get surgery, so if you go get surgery, I'll go get surgery. And then they're like, okay, that's how this is gonna go.
It's that Creed thing, I fight, you fight.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
And so they make it to the hospital in time. They wheel Tetsu into surgery. And I don't get why he did this here. Ryo tells Maiko, hey, so that thing about him needing surgery, like, they gotta sew him up, but he's gonna be okay. It's not that bad.
Yeah, I might have over-exaggerated how bad it was. And she actually does an okay job of accepting it, and she goes through with her own surgery, which is a relief, because my reaction to that would have been like, you did what now? You just tricked me? What the hell? Why did you tell me this?
Look, if you're not gonna get the surgery for me, or for your mom, or for yourself, do it for this man who got shot for you.
That's a good point, actually.
If anything, Ryo could have just left it at that, like, hey, you kind of owe this guy. He took a bullet for you.
Yeah, so you should get the surgery and live.
Otherwise, you're a dick.
God. God.
And so now that she's out of recovery, Cowdy and Ryo show up with flowers to congratulate her. She's like, oh, thank you guys so much for helping me out and protecting me and finding Tetsu. He's really turned his life around. Look over there.
He's learning to become a nurse. He's playing with a bunch of kids. He's actually a really good guy. I think that's great.
So yeah, things turned out great for Tetsu. Turns out getting shot was the best thing that could have happened to him.
It got him out of the yakuza.
Got him out of the life. And so now that the episode is wrapping up and we see that Maiko is okay and safe and healthy, for whatever reason, just because it's the tail end of the episode, Cowdy decides to remind Ryo, hey, so what about your 2-year plan? What happened to that?
And she really didn't need to remind him because he says immediately afterward, oh, I totally forgot about that. Hey, little girl, come here. like he would have forgotten. He would have not gone through with this whole grooming scheme, but now he's like, hey, I'm gonna go wheel her around in her wheelchair and get her to bond to me so that in 2 years she'll be 18 and then we can do stuff. And I'm just like, what the fuck? Why are we here?
What he says is, hey, Maiko, I'll give you a choo-choo ride, and then he starts pushing her wheelchair that she's in.
Yeah, just rolling her around and playing with her.
And Cowdy's like, are you serious right now? And I'm looking at Cowdy like, Cowdy, are you serious right now?
Yeah, why did you say anything? Why did you do this?
And so I'm thinking to myself, at this point, I think Ryo was just dicking with Cowdy to a certain extent, because we know he consciously does. He chooses to dick with her to kind of throw her off the path of him potentially having feelings, which we know he does at this point. And so right now at the end of the episode, I really think he's just trying to get her goat.
Look, I get it. It's a nice headcanon. I understand how you got there, but still, what the fuck? Let's just not even do this joke. It's just not a good joke.
No, I agree with you.
We just shouldn't be here.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. In any case, Supergirl is already playing, and that's the end of the episode.
Yay.
I think there's some really nice stuff in the episode. 80%
of it is okay. All right.
If it just wasn't for the damn grooming subplot.
What the fuck?
Which totals to about 3, maybe 4 jokes in the whole episode. So less than a minute, I think. But we could have just done without it.
Especially because it is so otherwise out of character for Ryo. It really is. So the whole 2 episodes out of the, I don't know how many episodes total there are of City Hunter, but it's 2 episodes that if you just cut them, and I don't even think they're super important episodes to the greater plot of City Hunter, if you cut them, it might be the better for it. You would have a dude who is still an asshat and still an assaulter, but at least he doesn't go for children and in fact makes a very hard line to say, we don't go below the age of 18. That's not a thing we do around here. So this is so wildly out of Ryo's character that I cannot stand that he's written this way in this particular episode.
No, I feel you on that. I really do. Mm-hmm. And so thankfully next week when we come back, it's going to be an episode with Sayako and just adults. We're just dealing with adults again.
Oh, thank Christ. Let's just hang out with other adult human beings, okay? Let's not bring children into a life of crime or into grooming schemes or any of that shit, okay?
Yeah, none of that. It's just gonna be old-fashioned Psycho pulling some stuff that Ryo has to get her out of. It's just a one-parter. It'll be nice. That's all it is.
So come back next time when we cover the 30th episode of City Hunter 2, Ryo, Please Be Deceived, present to a girl from Sayako.
And if you want to catch us outside this podcast, you can always find us both over on Twitter. For now, I'm at JoshKnightFirst.
And I'm at MarzGurl. Thank you all so much for listening to our 80th episode of MokkoriPlay. And if you don't come back next episode, I'm gonna pull a fast one on Josh.
Joke's on you, I'm not even here.
What?